Hey there, what's up? This is Allison with Meet and Learn Photography, and I am so excited about having the community call this week. We're going to talk a little bit about your photography workflow and moving everything from the camera to all the processing that you want to do, and then clear on to delivery or sharing. So we're going to make sure we cover, at least at a high level, we're going to talk a little bit about all the steps and all the different tools and applications you can use and how to think at a different level about your workflow. So rather than just piecemealing things here and there, we're going to actually sit down and talk about, okay, how do I make my processes more efficient? But before we get into that, let me go ahead and tell you about a couple other upcoming activities and events where we can actually meet up and learn more about photography together. So the first one, this Saturday, we are going to be meeting up at Photo Fest, which is hosted by Psycho Silo Saloon. You can read more about any of these activities on through our Facebook group. Hmm, tongue-tied a little bit. You can read about these through our Facebook group. And if you have any questions, you can also just ping me directly. DMs are always open. So that's this Saturday is going to be Photo Fest. The following Saturday, which is should be Labor Day weekend, we are going to be heading up to the Renaissance Fair in Bristol, Wisconsin. Um, gonna go hang out there. We're gonna eat some fair food and maybe have a few and take some really cool photos. There are tons of performers who walk around and have lots of costumes, and there are shows to watch, and it's just a really good time. And of course, hanging out because we are meeting and we are learning together. The next event is going to be, let me check the date, September 6th. We are going to be heading to the Lantern Festival in Aurora. This one is a ticketed event, so you will want to go ahead and buy your tickets in advance. The Ren Fair is a paid event, not to me, but to the Ren Fair. All the performers need to get paid for their fabulous work, their skills and things that they're bringing. So the Ren Fair is a paid event, but PhotoFest is free. I would encourage you to go ahead and have a drink at the saloon. Um, let's see, the Lantern Festival, ticketed event in Aurora. And then in October, October 19th, is going to be Nightmare on Chicago Street, which is a massive, big old block party that's a Halloween themed. Another ticketed event, but I guarantee you'll have a good time. The last event I want to tell you about, and this is breaking news. I'm super excited about this. Um, I have a dear friend, Mario Salazar. I don't know if you've met him, but I'm gonna share with you with this recording. I'm gonna go ahead and share some of the he and I worked together a couple years ago on a really specific project where we were interested in telling a story. We were doing this for Christmas, but we wanted to do a story that wasn't like anything else that we'd seen. And so we bounced back and forth and we came up with this, I think, this really beautiful story. And we went out and he photographed and I actually modeled for this event. And we went on set, on set. We went out in the forest, in the snow, in the middle of winter. We went out in the forest, and due to the nature of the theme, the story that we were telling, I needed to be in boots. And I strapped on my knee-high platform boots with like 6-inch heels and started off. I had no idea where we were going, and a little did I know that we were going to be hiking, and we were be hiking through the snow. And so we got part way up the hill, and in the cold I was trying to click some of the snow off the bottom of my boot, and the heel broke off. So here I am trying to walk on with missing one heel, and I got a couple more feet. Sure enough, the other heel broke off the other foot, and I couldn't walk any further. So I took my shoes off and walked back to the car in socks in snow. So yes, I've gone uphill both ways because it was in a valley and we went up, down and up. And I did that in the cold, in the snow. Got back to the car, And I actually luckily had another pair of boots in the car that was a little bit different. Didn't fit the scene quite as well, but it worked. So I will share the images from the session. It's a beautiful session. Anyway, he is going to be coming, and he has experience in the film industry. He's worked with companies like ESPN Sports. He's worked with Universal Studios. He's worked with Pepsi, ABC. He's worked with a lot of different companies in the film industry, in media, in communications, and he's got a lot of experience that he brings to the table. And we are going to be hosting a workshop where he is going to be teaching you about shooting to edit. So let me actually go ahead and, because I do have, let me share my screen. This one right here, and let me go ahead and jump into presenter mode because I have slides today. I don't know if I'll have these every week, but this helps me kind of keep my brain on topic. So, yeah, Mario's going to be hosting an interactive workshop where we are going to be working on assessing the environment, determining the light that we need to use to light the scene, paying attention to the background, figuring out how to compose the scene, blocking our models so that we can get the scene to look the way we want in order to tell the story that we want. So I'm super excited about this. This is going to be in September. This is the first anyone's hearing about it. So welcome. I can't wait. There will be a link in the Facebook group for you to join the wait list. And we'll go from there. Awesome. So I told you this week where we're going to talk about our workflow. We're going to talk about post-processing. And before I jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about why this is actually important. Why do we care about actually having a workflow? And for the longest time, I didn't. I would pull images into Lightroom sometimes I would open them in Photoshop. I have had folders with different naming schemes and with different patterns, and some things are stored on an external drive, and there was a lot of unpredictability in what I was doing. And I think that's really important as a beginner to experiment with a lot of things. But I think as we grow and as we develop our style and we develop ourselves as better photographers, I think it's really important to sit down and think about our workflow a little bit. It's going to help you be more efficient, and it's also going to help you be more consistent with your style. If you decide to go back and find things from old shoots, it'll also make it a little bit easier if you've got a system that you know how to follow. So we're going to go through a couple different topics. We're going to talk a little bit about archiving, then we're going to talk about culling, and then we're going to talk about the actual editing, so color, retouching, those sorts of things. And then the final point, once you've done all this work, what are you actually going to do with your images? How are you going to share them? Are you going to keep them for yourself? Totally up to you, but we're going to talk about some different aspects of all of this. And we're going to ask a bunch of questions. So as I think about archiving, the first thing I want to think about is whether we want to archive in the cloud or on a hard drive, or if you want them both. So for me personally, I am trying to eliminate physical clutter in my life. And so having my items on an external hard drive means that I'm going to have to keep that external hard drive. So I am currently archiving everything in the cloud. Now, when I think about this decision, there are a couple other factors that can help make that choice for you. First off is, do you even need to archive your images? Are you just shooting a bunch of things that you're just playing around and you don't ever care to come back to? Or is there a reason that you actually do want to keep an archive? In my case, I love looking back on old images. I love seeing how much I've grown. I love sometimes I have not gone back and looked at an old image and re-edited but I do like to look back and say, you know what? I, I actually think that I had a decent eye, but this is how I've improved, or I really like the editing style on this. Let me remember what I was doing that I was able to edit in that style. The other reason that I personally keep an archive, and I do this in the cloud, is because some of the material that I am taking is of an adult nature. And there are laws that surround just like you have to keep your taxes for so many years. You also, if you are taking photographs that fall under what is it, Title 18 US Code 2257. There's some specific rules about how long you need to keep photos. And one of those, the guidelines say, if I recall correctly, is that you have to have every image from that photo shoot, if there was anything of an adult nature in that photo shoot. And then the second thing is that you need to maintain that, I believe, for 7 years. It may be longer. I haven't been shooting adult stuff that long, so that's kind of new to me, and I don't remember all the rules. But you needed to figure out how long you want to archive. Um, the next thing, like within that, in the decision to archive in the cloud or a hard drive, can also be that if it is in the cloud, I know that I can access it if I leave my house. So if I want to go and I want to take a vacation, a working vacation, and I want to go out and I want to edit from Portugal, I can do that because I can just jump on the cloud and I can download the images that I need, then pop them right back up and I'm done. Um, Another factor that you may consider in this is whether uh, how you want to store things. So let's say you've decided you do want physical media. I have one photographer I've spoken to. He maintains all of his old SD cards. So he just buys a new SD card for each shoot. You don't have to spend a lot on them, and you can just buy a small SD card, and then he labels his SD card and just tosses it in a bin after he's already pulled the images off of it. So that's one way you could do it. You could also, again, grab an external hard drive, transfer everything to that. It's a matter of long term how you want to be able to access and how you want to be able to use it in the future. Additionally, you can think about how you want to get your media on there. So for me, I'm a software engineer by trade. So I don't mind pulling up my CLI and running a command, and I can create a folder and automate a batch process that will, every time I push into that folder, it'll sync with my. You can do a code-based solution that'll do some automation for you, or you can look at things like a drag and drop solution. So for me, well, I'll tell you about what I do at the end. I got a big slide that talks about everything I do. But uh, some people may want to use Google Drive because they're already using that. Apple storage, I'm sure Apple has something, or Dropbox. Those are some ways that some people choose to go ahead and maintain their archive. If you are photographing solely for personal reasons and you are not doing it for business reasons, Amazon, and you're already paying for Amazon Prime, they have Amazon Photos, and you can actually upload all of your photos. You're already paying for Prime, and this is one of the services that they offer through Prime. But it does say on there you're not supposed to use it for business purposes. So if you're just a hobbyist, cool. But if you're trying to do that for business, you may want to choose another solution. All right. So another question that you may want to ask when you're thinking about archiving is whether you want to archive all of your images or if you want to cull everything first and only archive the best. Some people want to archive of their images because they think that they're going to go back at some point and go edit all of those. I'm not sure how much that actually happens. I gotta be honest with you, I don't know that people are going back and reviewing their images from 20 years ago and looking and saying, oh yeah, I actually really like that. I think I'm gonna re-edit that. Maybe it does happen. I don't think it happens often. The next question then would be, do you want to archive your original images or do you want to archive your final edits? For me personally, I do go ahead and archive because of the law. I go ahead and archive all of my original images. And then once I have completed my edits for my portfolio or for my client or my model, once I've completed all my final edits, I actually also upload those into my archiving solution. At one point, I was archiving my catalog and all of the steps along the way when I would export it to this and import it to this. And I was archiving all of that, but I've realized I just don't want to spend that much on archiving everything. Not that it's expensive, but I don't need that. I don't need all those interim processes. I have my workflow down well enough that I could actually go and I could redo that edit if I needed it to be exactly like I know my process well enough that I could redo an edit, and I know where in the process I could change if I wanted a different edit, because as I mentioned, I do maintain all my finals. So that's a lot of talking. Grab a drink real quick, just a second. All right. So let's also talk a little bit about culling. When we talked last week about some ways to cull, how Lightroom allows you to go one image at a time using a hotkey. You can go through real fast, and then you can also look at groups of images. But there's some other considerations that you may want to keep in mind when you're thinking about culling in your workflow. So the first thing I would ask, do you have a specific number of images in mind that you'd like to end up with? Now, if you are working with, for example, if you take on a client and your client, you guarantee your client a certain size gallery that they can choose from. Or if you say, if you have a clause in your contract that says something to the effect of the photographer will choose which images you receive. Or if you go to one of our meetup events where there's a minimum requirement to provide 3 images to each model that you shoot with. If you've got those sort of targets, then that's one thing that you can keep in mind as you're culling. You can also think about how much time do you have to edit. Sometimes you just don't really want to spend that much time on these edits, and so you may not want to pick as many images. And then the other question that I think is really crucial in our modern day is whether you want to integrate AI into your workflow. So there is actually some different culling software. The one I'm most familiar with for AI is Aftershoot. And you can go in and you can change your parameters about how narrow or how wide you want. So do you want to cull and get rid of a lot, or do you want to keep some images that may be a little bit similar and have it not refine as much? I personally, I don't want to edit anymore. Nobody's going to buy 5,000 images from a photo shoot that I've done. So I want to reduce down to my absolute best. And so I always tell it, cull as much as you possibly can. If I use Aftershoot. I don't always use it. I haven't yet gotten it trained to match exactly the way I want to cull. So it's kind of hit or miss for me. But I'll share a little bit more about my actual workflow at the end. Next, we get into the meat. All right. We've had our vegetables. Now let's get into the meat of this. Color and retouching. So this is where I think about software like Lightroom and Photoshop. But there's also a whole bunch of other tools out there. There's Capture One, there's back on culling, there's a tool called Photo Mechanic. I actually sometimes with my new old computer, I bought a used computer from someone else, and I cannot yet load Lightroom because the computer's too old. But I've been doing a lot of culling in Bridge. It offers a very similar interface to Lightroom for that purpose. And so I've been doing a lot of culling within Bridge. And like I mentioned, Photo Mechanic is great at that. I think there's some other AI tools as well, but I'm not familiar with any of those. But color and retouching, again, Lightroom and Photoshop are what we often think about. You could also use, I think that GIMP is a tool that you could use for I believe it's a free open source tool that you can download. There's a couple other free tools that are similar to Lightroom that I tried to install on my other computer, but again, it's old, so it can't take everything. Um, Capture One, there's the Topaz software has a bunch of, I think there are a bunch of Photoshop plugins. There's a lot of software out there. I definitely don't know it all. Um, but let's start off by thinking about, do we want to use AI in our workflow, right? We just talked about AI culling. Do we want to use AI in adjusting our color or retouching our skin or retouching our backdrop? There are some really powerful AI tools out there that can actually get your photo editing done and save you a lot of mental anguish. But when I think about using AI, I've used it some in I've tried to use it some in my content creation in writing different things for me. And it can be it can be good to help come up with some lists of things that I may want to consider. But when I think about the final product, it tends to sound just like everyone else. And when you use Midjourney, it and I say that because that's the only image generator that I use. I've not tried Dolly or any of the others. But when you use AI, it tends to, over time, it's got its own style. And some of that style, if you are using it, then your style is going to look like anybody else who uses that style. So when I think about using AI personally, I think about incorporating a couple different AI tools, but then also adding my own personal touch to it all. Um, Same with presets. If you use the same desaturated green, teal orange presets that everybody else is using, your images are going to look like everybody else and you're not going to really be distinct. That may be okay. Maybe your target clientele or your target audience doesn't have to be clients. You may just be a hobbyist. Maybe your desire is actually to try to look like a certain photographer or to try to look like a certain genre. And because of that, you do have presets that you want to use. Um, but maybe think about not just applying the preset, but then how can you tweak it a little bit to make it your own? Now, plugins are fantastic. I'm not I'm only kind of knocking presets. We'll talk a little bit more in the future about developing your own presets. That's not a conversation for today. But let's also talk about plugins. So plugins, presets are in Lightroom and plugins are in Photoshop. Presets make your image, uh, it's running the sliders, right? When we think about plugins, plugins are more about creating a repeatable process for specific actions. For example, I'm sorry, that's not a plugin. A plugin is uh, it's a tool that you can use inside of Photoshop. So you can use the Nik collection. You can use the Topaz software. Those are both plugins. I think Portraiture is another plugin in Photoshop. So there are other people who develop additional tools that you can use within Photoshop. There are also Photoshop actions. I should have mentioned that on here, but you may want to either buy or download or create your own actions in Photoshop to help accelerate some of the different steps that you find yourself doing over and over and over. For example, dodging and burning. If you are in every single image that you do, if you are dodging and burning over and over, build an action. If you are doing frequency separation over and over and over, build an action, buy an action, download a free action. These are things that there's no need to take up time, doing these steps yourself. Filters, this would be, if you're applying things, filters in Instagram or Snapchat, like they're the primary editing tools are, I wouldn't call those filters. A preset could kind of be considered a filter. Also on color retouching, are you going to be doing any batch processing? So I know that every photo shoot that I'm going to do is going to receive this preset. So instead of going in and applying the preset to every image, you can go in and highlight all the images and apply that preset one time. Same thing with Photoshop. I know that everything I do is going to receive a certain type of processing. So I'm going to go and I'm going to run batch processing through Photoshop. If you didn't know that's possible, that's another topic that we're going to look at in the future, is about how to batch process your images. But that's something to keep in mind. Do you have a vision for what you want the end photo to look like? I think oftentimes as a beginner, and even where I'm at now, I don't necessarily always have an image, a vision of where I want that photo to go. Sometimes I do, and like I showed last week, sometimes, like that, those images, I really was inspired by Brandon Wolfel, and I wanted to try and bring out some of the things that he had, that he has in some of his images. So sometimes I'll have a target vision in mind, but sometimes I'm just not sure where I want to go with it. So I'll play with the slider and I'll go through 100 presets and yep, no, 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 maybe, no, 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 no. So think about if you have a consistent vision that you want to have happen all the time. For my professional work, for my boudoir stuff, I run it through the same process every time. But when I'm doing these pleasure shoots and when I'm doing these things that I'm trying to get myself out of my comfort zone, a lot of that I'm just doing a lot of experimentation. So you may actually develop multiple workflows that are potentially a little bit different from each other. With that vision, do you have any reference images or colors? For example, if you are doing commercial photography, if you're working on product, whether that's just like household products or clothing or paint colors, any of that, you may have specific colors that you need your image to pull out. And so you may need to consider bringing those colors in or having that reference available when you're doing the work. You may also be using other images as a composite. So if you're creating composites, you may want to develop a folder structure and a workflow that would bring all of those images into, let's say you want to do all of your color on everything in the same place so that everything looks cohesive first. That's something you may want to consider in your workflow. And then finally, do you have any overlays or textures that you use regularly? Light leaks or fall leaves or a grunge texture, any of that, you may want to go ahead and build a library out of those textures so that you don't have to go and find them on your computer over and over and over. So those are some of the questions I think about color and retouching. There's one thing I didn't add to this slide because obviously it's getting a little full, but thinking about, are you going to work at one computer every time, or do you need to be able to travel with your editing? And if you're traveling, are you looking at a tablet or are you looking at a laptop or are you looking at a phone? Because all of those have different workflows with them. The next set of questions that I would start thinking about once you've got your edits done is about sharing. So if you are thinking about delivering, when I do a photo shoot for a client, I first create a set of images that would be their initial pics, and I do some small editing for that. Basic color correction, and I let them look through, and we look at if I'm delivering it for them to look through on their own time. Then I'll create a smaller resolution image and I'll apply a watermark to it. And that way they're not going to go and try and print an image that has Wicker West written all over the front of it. Okay, they're going to wait. That incentivizes them not to steal my images. I don't like the word steal. I think that just assumes bad things. Um, but I'm still going to do my best to prevent that. Same thing when I actually, personally, when I am sharing specifically my boudoir stuff, but I'm considering in other areas as well. When I share those images, I overlay them with my branding and my quote, and I cover them. And so when my images get out there on the internet, you can tell they're my images. If somebody decides to go share that, awesome, they've shared it. And now it's known that I'm the one who created those. So I love watermarks and overlays and this branding on top of my image. So again, are you looking at small images, or are you in a final space where you're exporting the high res images? Um, some people don't even deliver high res images to their clients at all. They only deliver social media sized images. Um, and that's fine if you want your prints to all be run through you. That's one business model. The next thing the next thing to think about is whether you're going to be sharing any of these personally on social media. When we think about the different compression, everybody complains all the time about how Facebook compresses my images. And okay, I get it. Yeah, I had an image the other day that I uploaded and I was like, I don't know where all my color went, all my details, because now it looks all black. And it wasn't very exciting that my image didn't look the way I had seen it on my other screen. So you want to think about these compression algorithms when you're thinking about uh, exporting once you've finished your editing. Also, are you going to add the images to any stock websites? The stock websites require different sizes. And most of them do require a high-res image. So I don't know if you have to upload the reduced sizes or if the stock websites do that themselves, but you'll definitely need a high-res image for those. What are you going to do with it? Also, are you going to, for example, I have a folder that is what I consider some of my best work, and I use those as my portfolio images. And then I can take those and share with my content gal, and she can, uh, excuse me, she can use those to post on my social media, that sort of thing. Are you going to be putting your images in a magazine or a gallery or on the wall somewhere? When if you are doing any sort of printing, you may need to take into consideration the crop ratio. So if you're looking at if you know that you're going to be going in a magazine, but you've shot an image landscape, you can actually crop to a portrait and it's usually going to be fine. You want to keep your resolution in mind when you perform that crop. And then are you going to be printing any of these images? Again, the size that you print things will affect your workflow. All right, so we've kind of gone through a bunch of different topics, and I want to talk about what I actually use. So I mentioned in the beginning, my archive, I do this through AWS. I go ahead and the first thing I do when I get back from a shoot is I stick my SD card in my computer and I create a folder on my AWS drive, and then I take all the images from my SD card and throw them into that folder. And that way I have peace of mind knowing that if something happens to this card, it's okay because my images are all backed up. The next thing I do is I import everything into Lightroom when I have a computer that runs Lightroom or Bridge. And I go ahead and I either call in Lightroom. Sometimes I will go ahead and call in Aftershoot. For my business, I tend to do more in Lightroom, but if I'm looking at, some of these meetup groups and that sort of thing, sometimes I'll call in Aftershoot. From there, I'll do my color correction. I use a combination of Lightroom and Imagine AI. I think Imagine AI has some great presets. I have not yet tried to do my color correction in Evoto, but I do use that for my retouching. Um, I've just not yet tried it. When I was first trying Evoto, someone mentioned that they didn't have any presets that were really good for dark and moody, and I found some in Imagine AI that I thought fit my style of image best. So I go ahead and stick with that. Once I'm done with my color, my initial color. So I think about this as I do color correction, and then I go and do um, my retouching. I do all my, get rid of skin smoothing and backdrop retouching, and then all those other things. If I need to do any dodge and burn, if I need to do any um, liquify, I'll do all of that. And then I sometimes bring them back over into Lightroom, or sometimes I will do a little bit of color work in Photoshop. I like that in Photoshop, if you're doing color work in Photoshop, you can do something and then you can add another layer, then you can add another layer. And um, I've actually found that I've liked it for some things. For some things, it's not great, but yeah, that's with the new masking capabilities and how you can do a mask and do changes to that, then do another mask and do changes to that. It's kind of doing similar effects as Photoshop, um, but sometimes I will do uh, color in Photoshop. But to go back, I do my color correction first, and then I do my image correction, and then I'll go back if I need to do any um, color grading. So I always save that to the very end because I want to, when I'm correcting all of the skin features in the background, I want to look at it in as clean of an image as possible. And then when I throw my color grading on at the end, that's when things can get wild. So yeah, retouching. If I'm gonna do any branding, I mostly do that in Photoshop. Sometimes I'll bring it into Canva. But I I find that the layers and the masking works better in Photoshop, but they've got a whole bunch of different tools. I feel like Canva is more for design, and Photoshop works better for my own workflow. Then the last thing, sharing. If I am sharing with clients, I have a CRM. I think that stands for client resource manager, client something. Anyway, it is Sprout Studio is the tool that I use for booking my clients. They can select their date, they can create their payments in there. I can invoice them to do payment plans. We can do what are some of the other features? Uh Signing contracts. They do have a way to run all my automated emails. So once someone books a shoot, I have a trickle of emails that kind of help keep them thinking about their shoot and helps them understand the process. So it kind of helps set their mind at ease. But it also has in it, it has a gallery mechanism um, where I can upload a gallery. They can go in and they can select their images from there. So if I'm doing a virtual gallery. I really like to do my sales in person, but if I'm doing it virtually, I can do that through there. Or once I've gotten all my final images, I can upload those in Sprout as well. And like I said, it also has email. I can do email marketing. I can do all my lead management. I think Sprout Studio is fabulous for all of that, and I use it some for. I'm going to be using it for Meet and Learn for some of the ticketed items that are if I'm personally selling tickets to something rather than the ticketed items where you're paying for an attendance through there and I'm just showing up to hang out. So Sprout Studio is where I do my client gallery delivery. I also I share images on Facebook and Instagram. Mostly what I do is I go ahead and create my image for Instagram. So I create it. I like the square crop. If you looked at my Instagram feed, uh, a lot of the overlays and things I do, I really focus on that, excuse me, on that square crop. And then I will also share those over with Instagram, or excuse me, with Facebook. Um, so I've got this workflow that kind of goes along. There are some places where I'll go back and forth. Like I mentioned, I'll do color in Lightroom, then I go over to Photoshop and Evoto, I'll do stuff, and then I'll bring it back over to Lightroom. I think I export everything from Lightroom. So it kind of goes from AWS, I'll color, I'll retouch, and then I'll export, and then I'll bring it over for branding. But after I export, I'll also archive my final images. So there's a little bit of back and forth. So I have a question. Would you be interested in seeing an actual detailed diagram of all of the steps and the filters and everything that I do for a business shoot? Would that be of interest? If it would, go ahead and let me know, and I'll think about it. Is it secret sauce if I'm using AI and presets and things that already exist out there? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I decide to share. But yeah, if you'd like more details, if you've got any questions, absolutely, please feel free to reach out. I would love to answer your questions and help you out in any way I can. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the going to stop sharing, and then I can, nope, that doesn't stop sharing. Where is the stop share? There it is. All right. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget the workshop with Mario is coming up. It's going to be such a good workshop. We're going to have you working in a pair. There'll be two photographers and one model. So each photographer is going to get plenty of time working with models. You're going to get live feedback. So this isn't a sit in the corner of the room and watch somebody present and watch somebody talk about the topic. You're actually going to be working with Mario. He's going to give you live feedback. I'll be there on site. I'll probably be running something digitally, be running a video in the background. We'll see what happens. But I'm really excited to learn too. So I cannot wait to have you guys, and hopefully I get to see you at an event soon so we can meet and we can learn. Thanks, guys.